Let me ask you something before we begin this story. When was the last time you truly wanted something so badly that you were willing to sacrifice everything for it? If you can't remember, then you need this story more than you know. Today I want to share with you a story that didn't just change my perspective on life, it shattered it completely and rebuilt it from the ground up. This is the story of Marcus, a young man who discovered the most important truth about life: everything has a price, and he was willing to pay it in full. Marcus was 22 years old, living in a cramped apartment in downtown Detroit with his single mother, Rosa, and his 8-year-old brother, Danny. Rosa worked double shifts at a 24-hour diner, leaving at 5 a.m. and returning at 11 p.m., her hands cracked from washing dishes for 12 hours straight. But she never complained. Not once. Danny was brilliant, could solve math problems that stumped high schoolers and had dreams of becoming a scientist. But Marcus knew something that kept him awake at night. In their world, brilliance without opportunity meant nothing. Every morning, Marcus watched his mother leave before sunrise. Every afternoon, he picked up Danny from school while trying to ignore the growling in his own stomach. And every night, he lay in bed asking himself, how do I break this cycle? Marcus understood something many young people don't: he wasn't just responsible for his own future. He was carrying the dreams of 3 people. That weight could have crushed him, but instead, it forged him into steel. The apartment they lived in had thin walls, a leaky faucet that dripped constantly, and windows that rattled when trucks passed by. But it was home. It was all they could afford. Marcus would sit on the fire escape sometimes, looking out at the city skyline, wondering if there was a place for him in those gleaming buildings that seemed so far away. At his job at the gas station, Marcus worked for Mr. Peterson, a man in his 60s who had owned the same corner store for 30 years. Peterson had watched the neighborhood change, had seen young men like Marcus come and go. Some made it out, most didn't. He saw something different in Marcus though, a hunger that went beyond just wanting things. It was a hunger for transformation. "Boy," Peterson would say during slow afternoons, "you got something in your eyes that most folks don't. Question is, what you gonna do with it?" Marcus would shrug, not knowing how to put his ambitions into words. He felt like he was drowning in potential with no way to breathe it into reality. One Friday evening, walking home from his minimum-wage job at a gas station, Marcus decided to take a different route through the wealthy part of town. That's when he saw something that would change everything: a small coffee shop with a line stretching around the block. Dozens of customers waiting over 20 minutes just to buy a cup of coffee. He stood there, mesmerized, watching people check their phones, laugh with friends, and patiently wait for what seemed like just coffee. He heard phrases like artisanal coffee and craft brewing methods. The cheapest drink cost $8, more than Marcus made in an hour. These weren't wealthy people showing off, they were regular folks who had found something they valued enough to pay premium prices for. What struck Marcus most wasn't the price, but the satisfaction on people's faces when they finally got their coffee. They didn't just drink it, they savored it. They took photos of it. They talked about it with their friends. This wasn't just a transaction, it was an experience. In Marcus's neighborhood, there was one convenience store that sold coffee, burnt, bitter liquid that sat in pots for hours, sold for $2 in styrofoam cups. People bought it because they needed caffeine, not because they enjoyed it. But 20 blocks away, people lined up and paid 4 times as much for coffee they genuinely loved. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about those satisfied customers, that long line, the $8 cups of coffee. He got up at 2 a.m. and started researching everything about coffee on his phone. He went to the library the next day, checked out every book on coffee and business, watched YouTube videos until his eyes burned. The more he learned, the more excited he became. Coffee wasn't just a beverage, it was community building, a daily ritual, a moment of pleasure in busy lives. People would pay for quality if someone brought it to them with care and respect. Marcus learned about different coffee beans, roasting methods, brewing techniques. He discovered that the difference between good coffee and great coffee often came down to freshness, quality of beans, and skill in preparation. These weren't mysterious secrets, they were learnable skills. But here's where most dreams die, at the intersection of vision and reality. Marcus had no money, no equipment, no experience, no connections in the coffee industry. He was a gas station clerk from the wrong side of town with big dreams and empty pockets. Most people would have stopped there, convinced it was impossible. But Marcus remembered his grandmother's words, spoken to him when he was 12 years old and complaining about wanting things he couldn't have. "Baby, everything good in life has a price. The question isn't whether you can afford it, it's whether you're willing to pay it." At the time, he thought she was just talking about money. Now, at 22, he was beginning to understand she meant something much deeper. Marcus made a decision that would define his life. He decided he was willing to pay whatever price success demanded. Not just financially, but personally. He was willing to sacrifice comfort, sleep, social life, and immediate gratification for the chance to build something meaningful. His first step was terrifying but necessary. He approached Elena Vasquez, owner of that expensive coffee shop where he had first seen the line around the block. For 3 days, he gathered courage, walking past the shop, rehearsing his pitch, trying to find the right moment. Finally, on a Tuesday afternoon during a lull between the lunch and dinner rushes, Marcus walked in. Elena was behind the counter, steam wand in hand, creating intricate latte art. She looked up as he approached, noting his nervous energy. "Can I help you?" she asked with a polite but guarded smile. Marcus took a deep breath and made his pitch. "Ma'am, I want to bring quality coffee to underserved neighborhoods. People in my area deserve good coffee too, but nobody's serving them. If you teach me the business, I'll pay you a consulting fee from my profits. We both win." Elena studied him for a long moment. She had heard pitches before from young entrepreneurs, but something about Marcus's earnestness caught her attention. Still, she had to test his resolve. "Why should I help my potential competition?" "Because I'm not your competition," Marcus replied without hesitation. "I'm going where you won't go. I'm serving people who deserve quality too, and they'll pay for it if someone brings it to them with respect." Elena was impressed by his directness and his understanding of market positioning. After a moment of consideration, she made an offer. "I'll teach you for free for 2 months if you can prove yourself capable and dedicated. But I warn you, this business is harder than it looks." Marcus's heart raced. This was his chance, his one shot at learning from someone who had already succeeded. "When do I start?" "Tomorrow. 3 p.m. Don't be late." For the next 2 months, Marcus lived a schedule that would have broken most people. Gas station from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., then straight to Elena's shop from 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week, no exceptions. He learned to operate complex espresso machines that cost more than his family's annual rent. He practiced grinding beans to precise consistency, understanding that too coarse meant weak coffee, too fine meant bitter extraction. He mastered the art of steaming milk to the perfect temperature and texture, learning that great coffee was as much about technique as it was about ingredients. Elena was a demanding teacher. She made him repeat procedures until they became muscle memory. When he made mistakes, and he made many, she didn't coddle him. She showed him where he went wrong and made him do it again until he got it right. "Excellence isn't an accident," she would say. "It's a habit. And habits are built through repetition." The physical demands were brutal. Marcus would arrive home at 11 p.m. exhausted, his feet aching, his hands smelling like coffee beans and sanitizer. Rosa would be waiting up, worried about her son working 18-hour days. "Marcus, you're going to make yourself sick," she pleaded. "You're just a boy. You don't have to carry the world on your shoulders." "Mom, I'm investing in our future," he would reply, collapsing onto the couch. "Every hour I work now is an hour Danny won't have to struggle later. Every skill I learn is insurance against poverty." The hardest part wasn't the physical exhaustion, it was the doubt that crept in during quiet moments. There were nights when mistakes made him question everything. When he burned milk for the 5th time in a row, when he couldn't get the espresso extraction right, when customers complained about drinks he had made. But Elena taught him the most important lesson of all: the difference between successful people and everyone else isn't that they don't make mistakes, it's that they don't let mistakes define them. Champions are made in the moments when they want to quit but keep going anyway. When his 2-month training period ended, Elena sat him down for a final evaluation. "You've learned the technical skills," she said, "but running your own business is completely different from working for someone else. Are you ready for that responsibility?" Marcus nodded. He had been preparing for this question. Elena connected him with Mountain Peak Coffee Roasters, a wholesale supplier who worked with small independent coffee shops. But first, he needed a business plan and $8,000 startup capital. $8,000 might as well have been $8 million to the Martinez family. Marcus calculated that he needed to save every penny for 4 months while Rosa and Danny survived on her wages alone. That meant rice and beans most nights, no money for anything beyond absolute necessities, no unexpected expenses. "How can we live on even less than we already do?" Rosa asked, horrified at the prospect. "Because this isn't about 4 months, Mom. This is about the next 40 years. This is about Danny going to college. This is about you never having to work double shifts again." For the remaining $6,000 after his savings, Marcus developed a plan that was part strategy, part desperation, part hustle. He advertised his services throughout the neighborhood: dog walking, window cleaning, painting, moving furniture, yard work, house sitting. Anything legal that people needed done, Marcus was willing to do. He made and posted flyers on every bulletin board in a 10-block radius. He knocked on doors, introduced himself to neighbors he had never spoken to, told everyone about his willingness to work. His pitch was simple: "I'm saving money to start a business that will serve our community. Any work you have, I'll do it with pride." The response was mixed. Some people slammed doors in his face. Others were suspicious of his motives. But enough people saw his sincerity and work ethic that he started getting regular jobs. Mrs. Johnson became his most important client. She was a retired teacher who had watched the neighborhood change over 4 decades. Her yard was large and required weekly maintenance that she could no longer handle herself. Marcus started by cleaning her gutters, then moved on to lawn care, then general handyman work. Mrs. Johnson watched Marcus work with an attention to detail that impressed her. He didn't just cut grass, he edged perfectly, cleaned up every stray clipping, and always asked if there was anything else she needed. He didn't just paint, he prepared surfaces properly, used quality materials, and cleaned his brushes meticulously. After 3 months of watching his relentless work ethic, Mrs. Johnson called him over one Saturday afternoon. "Marcus, sit down. I want to talk to you." He sat on her porch steps, wondering if he had done something wrong. "I've been watching you work like your life depends on it for months now. You show up early, stay late, and never cut corners. What's driving you?" Marcus told her everything: his family's struggles, his coffee shop dream, his $8,000 goal, his plan to transform not just his life but his community. When he finished, Mrs. Johnson went inside and returned with an envelope. $1,000. 0 interest loan. Pay me back when you're successful, not before. Marcus stared at the envelope, overwhelmed. "Mrs. Johnson, I can't take this. What if I fail? What if I can't pay you back? Then you'll have learned an expensive lesson. But I don't think you're going to fail, Marcus. I've been teaching young people for 30 years. I know determination when I see it." Mrs. Johnson's loan was more than financial assistance, it was validation. Someone believed in him enough to invest in his dream. Word spread through the neighborhood about the retired teacher who had loaned money to the young man with the coffee cart dream. His reputation became currency more valuable than money. People recommended him to their friends and neighbors. His phone started ringing with job offers. His weekends became completely booked with work. By month 6, Marcus had saved the full $8,000 and built a network of supporters throughout his neighborhood. When he walked into Mountain Peak Coffee Roasters with his business plan and proof of funds, Carlos Montenegro, the owner, was impressed. "You've obviously done your homework," Carlos said, reviewing Marcus's detailed financial projections. "Sir, this isn't homework. This is my life's work." Carlos liked Marcus's seriousness and his understanding of the coffee business fundamentals. They negotiated a wholesale agreement that would allow Marcus to purchase high-quality beans at competitive prices, with payment terms that wouldn't strain his cash flow. With funding secured and suppliers lined up, Marcus purchased a used coffee cart from a vendor in Chicago who was retiring. The cart needed work, new paint, equipment maintenance, permit compliance, but it was functional and within his budget. Marcus spent 2 weeks completely refurbishing the cart. He sanded, primed, and painted it in bright colors that would stand out on the street corner. He had Marcus Coffee Company painted on both sides along with premium coffee, neighborhood prices. He spent additional weeks studying his chosen location, a busy corner near a bus stop where 3 major streets intersected. He observed foot traffic patterns at different times of day, identified potential customers, and understood the daily rhythms of his neighborhood. Construction workers caught the 6 a.m. buses. Office workers waited at 7:30 and 8:15. Students gathered after school at 2:30. Evening commuters returned home between 5 and 7. Each group had different needs, different price sensitivities, different time constraints. Marcus created a menu that would serve all of these groups effectively. Simple, high-quality coffee drinks at fair prices. No complicated seasonal specials or trendy drinks that would confuse customers or slow down service. His goal was to serve excellent coffee quickly and consistently. The night before opening day, Marcus couldn't sleep. He lay in bed running through procedures, imagining different scenarios, worrying about everything that could go wrong. Rosa sat on the edge of his bed at midnight. "Mijo, you've prepared as much as you can. Tomorrow, just be yourself. Be the young man who works harder than anyone and treats people with respect." Opening day arrived with a mixture of excitement and terror that Marcus had never experienced. At 6 a.m., he was at his corner, cart set up, coffee brewing, heart pounding. At 7:30 a.m., he served his first customer, Jerome, a bus driver who had been watching Marcus set up for 20 minutes with obvious skepticism. "What you got, young man?" "The best coffee this side of town, sir. Made fresh, priced fair, served with respect." Jerome laughed. "That's a big promise. Let me get a large coffee with cream and sugar." Marcus prepared the drink with the precision Elena had drilled into him. Fresh beans, proper extraction, perfect temperature. When he handed Jerome the cup, he watched nervously as the older man took his first sip. Jerome's skeptical expression softened. He took another sip, then another. "This is actually good coffee. I mean really good coffee. How much?" $3.50. Jerome paid without complaint and took another appreciative sip. "I take this bus every morning at 7:45. I'll be back tomorrow. And I'm gonna tell the other drivers about you." That first day, Marcus sold 37 cups of coffee and made $42 in profit. It wasn't much, but it was proof that his dream could become reality. More importantly, he had satisfied customers who said they would return. Word spread quickly through the community networks that matter most, bus drivers talking to each other, construction workers recommending the new coffee guy to their crews, office workers mentioning the good coffee cart to their colleagues. Jerome kept his promise and became Marcus's first regular customer. He brought other drivers. Construction workers started arriving 15 minutes earlier to get coffee before catching buses. Office workers discovered that Marcus's coffee was significantly better than the convenience store swill and only slightly more expensive. Marcus treated every customer like family. He learned names within the first week, remembered drink preferences by the second week, asked about families and jobs by the third week. He understood intuitively that people don't just buy products, they buy relationships and experiences. "Good morning, Mrs. Rodriguez. Medium coffee, 2 sugars, extra cream, just the way you like it." "Jerome." "The usual, plus maybe something for the road." "Hey there, college student whose name I should know by now. What can I get you?" His genuine interest in people created a community around his coffee cart. Customers started arriving early just to chat with Marcus and with each other. The corner became a gathering place, a bright spot in people's morning routines. But success brought unexpected challenges. Other street vendors complained about the competition. Some tried intimidation tactics, parking too close to his cart or spreading rumors about health code violations that weren't true. One Monday morning, Marcus arrived to find his cart vandalized. Someone had spray-painted "Quit" across both sides in black paint. His first instinct was anger, then discouragement. Maybe he didn't belong here. Maybe he should find a safer location. Instead of being intimidated, Marcus made a decision that defined his character. He spent his own money on paint and supplies and transformed the vandalism into art. He painted over the word "Quit" with bright colors and added the message, "Quality coffee, neighborhood pride, everyone welcome." The vandalism attempt backfired completely. It galvanized community support around Marcus and his cart. Mrs. Johnson organized an informal neighborhood watch to keep an eye on things during operating hours. Jerome made sure other bus drivers knew to report any problems they witnessed. "You can't keep a good man down," Mrs. Johnson told anyone who would listen. "That boy is doing something positive for all of us." As his first year ended, Marcus was earning more than he had at the gas station, with a growing base of loyal customers. But he wasn't satisfied with just surviving. He wanted to thrive and expand his impact on the community. One afternoon, Marcus overheard two businessmen in expensive suits discussing a new office complex being built 6 blocks away. The developers were seeking local businesses for ground-floor retail space through a community investment program. That evening, Marcus researched Meridian Development Group and discovered they offered reduced rent, business mentorship, and marketing support for qualifying local entrepreneurs. The application process was highly competitive, but Marcus had 18 months of proven operations, an established customer base, and detailed financial records. The interview process was intense and intimidating. 5 executives in suits questioned his business model, growth projections, and long-term vision. The conference room was larger than his family's entire apartment. "Mr. Martinez, we have applications from established chains with decades of experience and proven systems. Why should we choose a one-man operation with a coffee cart?" Marcus took a deep breath and gave the answer that came from his heart, "Because I'm not just asking for retail space, I'm offering to be part of this community's transformation. I've spent 2 years building relationships with people in this neighborhood. When you invest in me, you're not just getting a coffee shop, you're getting someone who will make this development a gathering place where longtime residents and new tenants come together." He pulled out a folder of testimonials from customers, letters of support from community leaders, and photographs showing the daily interactions at his coffee cart. "I know systems and procedures. But I also know this community in ways that corporate chains never will. I know Mrs. Rodriguez takes her coffee with extra cream because it reminds her of her mother. I know Jerome works double shifts to support his grandchildren. I know the construction workers who will build your building, and they already trust me with their morning coffee." The executives exchanged glances. They had heard many pitches, but none quite like this one. 1 week later, Marcus received the phone call that changed everything. He had been selected from over 200 applicants. He would lease 1,200 square feet of prime retail space at below-market rates, with mentorship support and community development incentives. Opening Marcus Coffee Company required everything he had learned about business and more. Managing contractors during build-out, hiring employees, expanding his menu, sourcing equipment, coordinating with suppliers, maintaining the cart during the transition period. Every day brought new challenges that tested his problem-solving abilities. Rosa quit her job at the diner to help with the books and daily operations. For the first time in her adult life, she was working for her family's business instead of making someone else rich. Danny, now 10 years old, helped with simple tasks after school and learned business concepts that most kids his age never encountered. For the first time, the Martinez family was working together toward a shared dream instead of just surviving day to day. The grand opening exceeded all expectations. Elena attended with a group of her customers, proud to see her former student succeed. Mrs. Johnson was honored as the first official customer. Jerome brought a delegation of co-workers from the transit authority. Local media covered the story of the young entrepreneur who had built success one cup of coffee at a time. The shop was packed from morning until evening, with lines stretching out the door. But running a full coffee shop was exponentially more complex than operating a cart. Equipment breakdowns during morning rushes, employees calling in sick during peak hours, delivery delays from suppliers, health department inspections, payroll management, inventory control. Marcus had to solve problems constantly while maintaining the quality and service standards that had built his reputation. There were days when he worked 20 hours straight, troubleshooting equipment, filling in for absent employees, and handling administrative tasks. Through every challenge, Marcus remembered his grandmother's wisdom: everything good has a price, and the price was worth paying if you paid it fully and consistently. 1 year after opening the shop, Marcus Coffee Company had become the heart of the community. Marcus hosted monthly meetings for aspiring entrepreneurs, provided wall space for local artists to display their work, created part-time jobs for students, and sponsored Little League teams. The success had ripple effects throughout the neighborhood. Property values increased. Other small businesses opened nearby. A business district was forming around the coffee shop that hadn't existed before Marcus arrived. During the first anniversary celebration, Marcus addressed a crowd of customers, friends, family members, community leaders, and local media. 2 years ago, my grandmother told me that everything good in life has a price. She was right. But what I learned through experience is that the price is always worth it if you're willing to pay it fully and consistently. He looked around at his thriving business, at Rosa manning the register with pride, at Danny helping customers with a smile that reminded Marcus of himself at that age. Success isn't free. Respect isn't free. Financial security isn't free. A thriving community isn't free. But the price isn't just money, it's sacrifice, persistence, learning from failure, getting up earlier and staying up later than everyone else, and never giving up even when others give up on you. The audience was completely silent, hanging on every word. Marcus could see Rosa wiping tears from her eyes, Elena nodding with satisfaction, Mrs. Johnson beaming with pride. I used to think some people were just lucky. Born into the right families, given the right opportunities, blessed with advantages I would never have. But I've learned that what looks like luck is actually someone paying a price others weren't willing to pay. Today, I challenge every person here to ask themselves, what price are you willing to pay for the life you want? Because I guarantee you, the pain of discipline weighs ounces, but the pain of regret weighs tons. After his speech, a 17-year-old named Carlos approached Marcus, hungry and determined, with the same look in his eyes that Marcus had carried at that age. Mr. Martinez, I want to start my own business, but I don't have money, connections, or experience. How do I begin when I have nothing? Marcus smiled, remembering standing outside Elena's coffee shop with nothing but determination and a dream. Success isn't about what you have when you start, it's about what you're willing to do with whatever you have. Come back tomorrow at 5 a.m. I'll teach you everything I know. That night, as Marcus locked up his shop and walked through the neighborhood, the same streets where he once felt trapped and hopeless, he reflected on the incredible journey that had brought him to this moment. 5 years earlier, he had been a minimum-wage gas station clerk watching his family struggle with no clear path forward. Now he owned a thriving business that employed 12 people, had become a pillar of the community, and was inspiring others to pursue their own dreams. But more importantly, he had proven to himself and everyone around him that circumstances don't determine the life you can build. What determines your future is your willingness to pay the price that success demands. The real price of success, Marcus had learned, wasn't just money or time or effort. It was the willingness to become the person capable of achieving what you want. It was changing habits that kept you small, upgrading a mindset that accepted limitations, and refusing to let other people's doubts define your potential. Looking up at the stars as he walked home to his family's new apartment, larger, safer, in a better neighborhood, Marcus made a promise to himself: he would continue paying whatever price life demanded to keep growing, keep serving, keep inspiring others. Because he had learned that the alternative, unfulfilled potential, quiet regret, wondering, what if, was far more expensive than any success could ever be. The story of Marcus Martinez proves that everything truly does have a price. The question that will determine your future is simple but profound: are you willing to pay it? What price are you willing to pay for the life you want? The answer to that question will determine everything that happens next in your story.